Hello, and welcome back to the Women's Rugby Show Weekly podcast with me, Sam. By the way, it may be PWR break week, but the content does not stop from us here at the Women's Rugby Show. This week, we'll be bringing you an interview with Edinburgh University in Scotland Pathways player Nicole Flynn after her return to injury. We'll be talking all things Denmark rugby with Amelia Lavallee, their assistant coach, their forwards coach, after their return to international action a couple of weeks ago. And we'll also be talking all things Utrecht Shield. Before we get into this episode, make sure you check us out across all social medias. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, all the social media platforms. And also, if you listen to this on Spotify, don't forget you can watch the video version on YouTube and also vice versa. Let's get into this one. First of all, Nicole, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. Just how are you and how's the recovery after the game last night?
I'm pretty good, thanks. Obviously a big win last night. I think everyone's really happy with it. Like we had quite a lot of couple new debuts as well. But it was really good to be back. So obviously it's my first game back last night since July. But I'm thankfully pain free, and yeah.
And just quickly, kind of talk us through that injury. Obviously, you picked up in the Summer Nation series, wasn't it?
Yeah. I got to play. It was a bit frustrating timing wise. I got to play 20 minutes of the Italy game, and unfortunately, that was kind of the end of my summer series after that. But at least I think I'm kind of just grateful that at least in that 20 minutes I had I had fun. Bagged myself a try, luckily, thanks to some good team play. So, but yeah, it was fun. Other than that.
And just kind of how tough has the recovery been, kind of missing the end of that summer series, kind of missing potential other opportunities, and also missing the start of the season?
Like obviously it was always going to be tough. Like I did say to um quite a lot of people, like it's it was probably the worst timing wise that I could do it. But obviously bigger things are yet to come. I'm still quite young, and I think it was just important that I got fixed instead of worrying about what I missed, because obviously I've got the rest of my rugby journey. So timing isn't really an issue, but I guess I'm just happy to be back now. And I'm lucky that it wasn't as significant as it could have been, because it obviously did take a bit longer than I'd hoped, but I'm just happy to be back.
Obviously, backing BUCS have rebranded this year as the Women's BUCS Super Rugby. Just kind of how important is BUCS for your development, also development of other players within Scotland?
Obviously, BUCS is now BUCS Super Rugby, and it's already pretty integral to women's rugby in the UK, as it is a direct pathway into those like next level programs. For us, it's in Wales, it's kind of Celtic Challenge, England more PWR, which are then further pathways for us girls to get into the international stage. But I think like as a uni, like for Edinburgh especially, quite a lot of our girls are or current and our alumni. They've been in and out of all the Scotland programs like 18s, 20s, futures, and obviously international camps. Obviously we had quite a lot of girls in Celtic Challenge last year too. But I think playing BUCS and like the speed that it's at, the kind of skill level, it kind of allowed us that smoother transition. So it was a lot easier to play that level up. I think what was it? Like we kind of bring that youthful energy. I think obviously fresh legs and stuff, but yeah, I think it like especially for me, I feel like playing BUCS is I just really think it's made me a lot better player. I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, especially with like players that have been in and out in the PWR. I think it's makes those games like a lot of a higher level than they could be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's kind of how special of an environment is Edinburgh. Obviously, you've got some quality coaches who coach within that national setup. You've got alumni who are playing for Scotland, got so many caps for Scotland, playing in the PWR. Just how special of an environment is it?
It's pretty special. Obviously we're the only Scottish team in the league, so I think it be playing in the league does bring a sense of national pride. Come on, Scotland. I think it's also really fun that we like as a community we've played against all the players that we're now playing with at youth level. But I think like we've always kind of been able to maintain that like top of the table position. So hopefully we can continue to keep that up this year, next couple of years, and obviously most importantly make our alumni proud. Obviously quite a lot of them are playing in PWR this year, so hopefully that will keep us playing at our best.
Mhm. And coach-wise, you obviously got Claire in charge as well, who kind of just seems to do everything up in Scotland at the moment, coach-wise. How special is it to work under her, and how good as she is to learn off as for a player?
I think like she brings that experience. She's very good at organising. She's very good at making opportunities for players. And obviously she'd been our coach. Like I feel like she's been everywhere in my journey since I've came to uni. Obviously had her at uni, had her for futures, had her for under 20s, had her for Edinburgh. But I'm very lucky that I've got her and she's a part of my rugby journey. She just seems to know everything. And I think she's done quite well this year with the amount of coaches that we've got at uni. We've got Ross McCann as well this year, who obviously is quite well known in the Sevens circuit. And he's doing like BUCS and our second team as well. But it's really good to learn from him, the experience he brings. I feel like he's quite a knowledgeable player and he knows what he's talking about. But yeah, I think we're very lucky to have Shanks because she's done a lot for women's rugby up here, especially with the national team this year. So yeah.
And what's next going forward for you? Obviously, Celtic Challenges building up. I think December, if that's right, kind of when it's supposed to be starting. So just is that kind of on the horizon? And what's in your sights coming up next?
Yeah. So Celtic Challenge, obviously all the teams are home and away this year. I think last year it was really good for us as a uni because due to that big step up, everyone really enjoyed it. So hopefully we can do the same again. I think we all came out better at the end of it and it did a big favours for us as a team at uni. So hopefully that can happen again this year.
Mm-hmm. Just how nice was it to represent Edinburgh as a club, kind of such a famous club within Scottish rugby? Just how nice was it to be representing them?
I think it was I was really grateful for the opportunity. I'm originally from Glasgow myself. I felt like a bit of a traitor, but I think the players we had there, I felt really grateful to be able to play with them. Obviously, we had Tomo and Emma Orr. I think I learned a lot playing outside of them. Made my job a lot easier. But yeah, it was a really cool experience, especially like getting to play on Hive, playing with people you never played, playing against people that you've never played. It was such a good experience, and I really enjoyed it.
Kind of just looking further forward. First of all, just how many years do you have left at uni? Is it 1 or 2?
2.
Okay, so kind of what is the aim going forward? Is it to kind of venture down south and see what the other players have been doing? Look like Kieran Bell, Emma all kind of moved into PWR clubs.
Oh, I don't know yet. I think I'll have to wait and see. Um, I think obviously it would be good to stay here, hopefully, by then. I think I'm quite lucky that this kind of started at this Celtic Challenge kind of started at the start of my uni journey. Um, but hopefully by then maybe Celtic Challenge will be more established enough that I don't have to go. But I think like if not, then PWR definitely probably will be where I go next.
Just kind of how much of an inspiration is it to see these players who you will have played with at uni, at Celtic Challenge, at Futures, at 20s, kind of making that next step? Some of them playing in the PWR regularly, some of them getting capped for the national team, something you're not far away from yourself. Just how much of an inspiration is it?
Oh, big inspiration. I think obviously we're quite a close knit team. I think it's always good to see your friends doing well, getting better, having fun. I think quite a lot of them are enjoying it anyway. But I think it's kind of inspiring because it's like, oh, if they're doing it, it's definitely a possibility that I can do it too. So it kind of like gets my hopes up for the future. Hopefully, I do get that opportunity to play down there. And I know a really good environment. I've heard a lot of good stories about how a lot of people feel like they benefit a lot from being down there. So hopefully I can do that too.
And just finally, just kind of if you could sum up your aims for this season in a couple of words, how would you do that?
Oh, I think just getting back, I'd probably just say have fun. That's probably all I'd say. That's all it's about at the end of the day. If you're not having fun, then what are you doing?
Perfect. So, Nicole, thank you so much for taking your time today. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon and best of luck for the rest of the season.
You too. Thank you so much.
So, first of all, just thanks so much for taking your time to chat to us today about Denmark and rugby in Denmark. Just first of all, just kind of can you explain kind of what the state of rugby was in Denmark kind of before the game against Norway, well, last week, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, so basically rugby is obviously a thing here in Denmark, but it's more sevens based than it is anything else. There hasn't been women's 15s games in the past 20 to 23 years. So therefore this was like a really, really big occasion going up to Norway all that way and obviously playing a 15s match just to get us started again. And coming away with a win was more than perfect scenario, really.
Just kind of how did the I don't know how much you know about how it got organised, but just kind of how much do you know about how it got organised and who were the key kind of
Well,
phases in it?
well, the key face really is Nina Vistesen. She used to play back in the UK a few years ago, and then she's come back to Denmark. And then has been in the sevens scene. She's head coach of sevens, and she's now also head coach for the Denmark's 15s. And then we sort of just got in contact, and then I know that she's been trying to build the 15s program back up again, and then it's just really gone from there.
Yeah. So how did you get involved? Kind of obviously you were the assistant forwards coach. Is that the right title for this one?
Just forwards coach, really. I
Yeah.
think there's like two roles, but we're both forwards coaches. Well, I've recently moved back to Denmark, and obviously wanted to keep my rugby going. So then I've heard about her before, so I sort of just shot her a message and then got the ball rolling from there. They had a couple of camps after I'd come back, and I got asked to coach a couple of things, and just gone from there, really.
And just kind of how important was the friendly against Norway to kind of first of all kind of get back as a Denmark national team, although it wasn't fully capped, but also just kind of knowing there is a team there and knowing that is a viable option.
Yeah, I think it's so important. Like a lot of the girls hadn't played 15s before, so like it was a massive step for them in general. And then obviously just getting like a baseline to see where we are in general and how we're going to grow from this. Because there's going to be masses of opportunities to grow now. Like we've got sponsorship as well, which is massive for Denmark 15s, considering we've only just started recently. So then get a sponsorship straight away is immense.
And then just the game itself, just kind of how was it? Kind of what was it like being a coach? Have you done much coaching before?
Not really, not massive amount of coaching. But no, it was really exciting. It was a really tough game. I know that Norway had a game against, I can't remember what country it was, but not far long ago, and Norway got beaten up quite a bit. But we were expecting to sort of have a bit of a walkover, I guess, really. But that wasn't the case at all. They put up a really, really good fight against us. They seem to have a really good setup up there as well. And obviously came away 7-0, which is not really heard of in such a long game often. But yeah, no, they were really good, put up a really good fight, like was very competitive and all that, both in set pieces and in open play and defense. It was a really exciting game. I don't think the scoreline really showcased how like much back and forth it actually was and like how tight and nail biting it was in the end.
Obviously, you kind of played yourself over in the UK for quite a long time.
Mm.
Just how much do you feel like your experience helps within the coaching setup?
I think quite a lot. I think having the experience that I do have, it sort of can give the girls a bit more of an insight what to do and how, because I've been playing, I can put myself in their shoes a lot of the time, and maybe the questions that they would have, I can sort of give from a player perspective more than a coaching side role, which I think they benefit from more than anything else, really, because they are so new to the whole 15 setup.
Obviously, you had Gabriella Scarf playing, who
Mm,
was at Hartpury, so kind
yeah.
of massive experience, probably won BUCS titles. Just how key was she in kind of her knowledge around the game as well?
Well, she was immense. Having her as a co-captain and especially leading the forwards from front foot was it made such a big difference. I think her knowledge and like how she played and how she led the girls really like gave a lot of just like confidence, and like she just she led the girls really really well, and they were all really confident and happy throughout the game, which I think is kudos to the captains.
And just kind of how was the experience overall? Obviously, representing a national team, albeit as
Mm.
coach, and kind of first game back for 20 years. So just how was it?
It was so good. Everyone is in such good spirits. Everyone was really keen and excited to get everything going and have a good experience, have fun with it was a really big part of it. Like we wanted everyone to enjoy, like enjoyment was one of the top like things that we needed to do, which I think we did in the end. And then obviously we flew up Friday evening and played Saturday noon, and then we had to get the ferry back to Copenhagen, which is an overnight situation, and then had a good social on the boat as well, which was really good. So I sort of got to celebrate it all together as a team afterwards, which was again amazing.
And just kind of what's next for rugby in Denmark going forward? Obviously, the Rugby Europe has kind of introduced that lower level of competition now. Is that kind of the aim going forward?
I think, yeah, if we can, that's a good question actually, because we kind of trying to figure that out ourselves. If we can get the commitment and the numbers to get that ball like rolling, then I absolutely think that that would be our next goal, to have conversations around that and see how far we want to go and how far we can go with support that we're getting externally as well.
And just kind of how exciting is it to see for women's rugby as a whole that obviously Denmark have come back, Norway haven't played much rugby, all these other teams in that Rugby Europe conference are growing as well. Just how exciting is it?
I think it's so exciting, and I think it's so amazing to see how many different countries are now putting a hand up. Like it's not just your standard 4 to 5 countries that are now dominating; it's now all over the world. And like for women's rugby, especially, I just think it's good that it's getting so much attraction and media coverage and everything, including that. And it just shows that there's opportunities everywhere, and everyone can be a part of it. And it's just really exciting to see the game growing everywhere, not just in the usual countries that you would expect it to.
So congratulations on the comeback and best of luck going forward.
Thank you so much.
So first of all, just thanks so much for chatting to us again. I think we spoke to you a couple of years ago, probably now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, thanks for coming
so
by, man.
can you just kind of summarise kind of what the Utrecht Shield is, who you are, and kind of how you got into running the Utrecht Shield and kind of get
Yeah,
started?
yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the Utrecht Shield is really just a challenge shield, i.e., once you hold it, you just have to defend it in every match you play. And that's it at its simplest, right? It's like becomes this whole thing of take it out of my cold, dead hands. And then the next team does the same thing. But actually, it's kind of linked back through history. So if you go back to 1982, the first Women's Rugby International, that was France and the Netherlands, which two surprising things about that the Netherlands would be in the first ever match and that it was only in 1982. But if you take that game, that's kind of the birth of the Utrecht Shield because it was played in Utrecht, and I treat France, who won that first game, as being your kind of first champions. And then they weren't beaten until 1986, actually, by the Netherlands. And they took this title off them. Now, of course, at the time, they had absolutely no idea about that because I hadn't come up with it yet. And so this is the kind of weird thing. It's kind of the newest, oldest title in the game. And it actually started in the men's side, as in 2008. It was kind of a thought experiment on the internet where a bunch of us were talking about it, kind of what happens if we play winner stays on. And we figured out the Rayburn Shield, which tracks back to 1871, the first men's international. I've actually been a long time lover of women's rugby. Like the 2010 Rugby World Cup final, I was sat there in the stands, and as a Kiwi, it was an absolute delight. But and over the years, I've been lucky enough to go to a lot of women's rugby. But even then, even as a person who's a supporter, it took a lot longer than that. It would have been like, I don't know what it was in the end, 2017, 2018, something like that, before the kind of Utrecht Shield became the natural follow-on. But subsequently, kind of made all that happen. And it was 2022 where it got really exciting because it was 40 years since the first Women's Rugby International. And I was very lucky to be invited across to Utrecht for those celebrations and actually get the shield made. In fact, I have it right here.
It is massive, isn't it?
So it's a big solid beast. And yeah, it was really, really nice in 2022 to get it over there and get it in the hands. You have like Viviane Barodia, who played in fullback for that French team, and seeing her with it and her like pointing to her badge where, her game was just like, actually, this is pretty cool. And there was a picture of her with Lisa, who was the captain of the Dutch team, the pair of them together holding it. And it's just like, that's the connection that I love about this. You're like, you can connect Viviane with an Ali Kildun today, so you've got the French fullback from 1982 and you've got Ali from now who holds it as the English do. And I love that they're connected by this. You can draw a direct line between them, and there's that's magic, I think.
Yeah, and obviously, I've seen you out and about recently. Kind of, it was at Quinn's, wasn't it? Kind of getting in the hands of some of the Red Roses, some of the Canadians. Just how cool is it to show it to them and kind of explain what it is?
Yeah, do you know what's really cool? And actually, the Red Roses were amazing, and I really, really liked getting into their hands. But what really tickled me was the Canadians, because Canada have been such a quality women's rugby team over so many years, but they've never held the Utrecht Shield. And the fact that they knew about it, and the fact that they, when they came over and they're like, oh, well, like we know this, it's really cool because it's that kind of acknowledgement for them, right? Like, as in, it's those extra prizes and it's them buying into that concept. And that's really when the magic of the Shields truly comes to life, is when you have players who go, yeah, we've got something that we want to keep hold of. Now, they have lost it to England now, but they're a growing force. I'd like to think that they will take it again one day. But yeah, talking to them was proper magic, actually. And then, yeah, talking to Skaz made me laugh because her very first question was, who's held it the longest? Which was the Blackburns. They managed 20 matches between 2002 and 2009. But she immediately was just like, okay, cool, that's the target. And she's clearly such a competitor. I love it. And actually, my 10-year-old who was with me, as she walked away, was like, she said, oh, so, okay, 19 to go. My 10-year-old was like, she's wrong, man. It's like 20 to go. She's got to get to 21.
Yeah, they spoke about that on the Good the Scars when they kind of brought it up, didn't they, a couple of weeks ago?
Yes. Yeah. It was really cool, actually, to kind of have them chatting about it. I mean, I would love to take it in there because actually their studios are in London and so am I. So I do have high hopes of being able to get along there, and actually Mo can have her turn kind of picking it up. I'm actually in the process at the moment because as you kind of see the shield, it's stickers on wood, right? So the wood is the wood that it will always be. It's a beautiful piece of French oak to recognize the kind of first holders. But the stickers are because I was quoted $7,000 for the kind of metal and engraving, and my wife's really understanding, but she ain't $7,000 understanding. So we're doing it in phases, and I've got the stickers on there. But now I have, so for instance, actually I've got some right here. So like I've got the metal pieces which we've been kind of working on engraving.
Yeah.
And so they can kind of slot into the shield as it stands. And so that gives us the kind of next stage, if you like, of being able to kind of elevate the shield and to slowly work it into its final form. Because I am not I don't come from the kind of hallowed estates of beautiful England. I'm going to have to stay humble and do it step by step.
You mentioned kind of the hopes there, kind of what it will look like, what you want to do with it. Kind of what is the overall aim for it, really?
Yeah. So I describe my mission as being to see players and fans having fun and competing for the Shield. And people are always like, do you want World Rugby to recognise it? And the answer is yes, but that's not the goal. I actually don't care. It's an outcome, or it's a result of everyone recognising it. And so from my perspective, World Rugby's got a lot of bureaucracy, and I don't 100% trust their motivations at every moment. And so instead, I'm just like, actually, if I can get the fans on board and enjoying it, and we're all doing it, World Rugby will come to me, and that's fine. We'll get it recognised. And actually, you look at the Qatar Airways Cup with South Africa, they don't need to be the ones who choose what nations do. So All we need to do is get buy-in, and then this can be passed around. Now, I'm very happy to have a conversation with World Rugby at that point. But right now, the goal is and will always be, how do we make sure the players feel like they've got something exciting to walk out onto the pitch with? How do we make sure the fans are having fun and that actually they're looking ahead? Because, Italy have got the next challenge in the Six Nations next year because England hold it. And there's something really cool about the fact that the other nations will be looking at that going, I mean, we can all be honest here, Italy aren't going to win it. But they're all looking at it going, could they lose their shot at a title if it goes a different way? And so that's the fun, right? Is when you're bringing other nations into it. How do they get themselves a shot? And so actually, like England lost it in the World Cup final, and they only just took it back off Canada because they hadn't get a shot for 2 years. So it doesn't matter if you're undefeated, you just might not get your chance. So that's my goal, right? Is fun and making sure that fans and players are having fun. And the rest of it, in terms of kind of so-called official, I don't really care because it's real. It exists.
Yeah. It's kind of just obviously a massive year next year for women's rugby. Just kind of how exciting is it? Obviously, there's so much to look forward to. Just how exciting is it?
It's beyond exciting. So as I said, I was at the Rugby World Cup 2010, sitting in the stands at Stoop, and it was great at the Stoop. It was amazing. It was a brilliant day. The crowd was really good. At the time, it felt transformative because it was bigger than anything we'd ever seen in the women's game before. And now you come forward to 2024, and we are going to sell out Twickenham for the Rugby World Cup final. But beyond that, I think we're going to sell out a load of stadiums for a load of matches. And considering that, the group stages of 2010 were all held in a kind of random small field in Guildford versus traveling around the country now in 2024, I just couldn't be more pumped. Mm-hmm. And then beyond that, the rugby itself, there's a load of teams that are really close. And you got to pay credit. The WXV tournaments have been really good for giving that kind of layer of teams competition amongst each other and time on the pitch to be able to build that skill set. And I think it's going to pay off at the Rugby World Cup because I think we're going to have a couple of very clear tiers of teams, but the competition between the teams in those tiers is going to be brilliant. It's going to be absolutely mega.
Yeah. And I guess just one last question for me, kind of two-parter. Just who do you think is going to win that World Cup next year, and will they be shield holders when they win it?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be England, probably. It'd be very surprising if it wasn't England. I am a New Zealander, and I will always have faith in the Black Ferns. But I also am realistic, and I'd be shocked if England didn't do it. All that being said, there's a year to go, and everybody's putting everything into it. And as we discovered last time, right, it's anything can happen in a given game. So... But yeah, it's going to be England. The Shield will almost certainly be with them throughout the whole tournament, so I don't expect them to lose it before the Rugby World Cup, and then I think they'll go through undefeated. And in fact, every single Rugby World Cup, both the men's and women's, the eventual winner has also been the Shield holder. There is a scenario where you could lose the Shield to somebody in the final game of a group, and they then get knocked out because they didn't have enough points. Yeah. But actually, it's extremely unlikely. If you're good enough to win that final match, you've probably got enough to go through to the next stage, and then it just gets handed over until the final. Mm-hmm. But I would say in the men's game, there's only one nation that have gone through a whole Rugby World Cup holding the linear world title and finishing with it. That was England in 2003. So maybe, just maybe in 2025, their women can repeat the feat.
Perfect. So cheers, mate. Thank you so much for chatting to us again today. Just hopefully, fingers crossed for a brilliant 2025 for women's rugby.
Oh, bring it on. I couldn't be more excited.